Greetings and salutations, this is Imperator Vespasian and his other trusty sidekick.
Hello.
Today we're having a look at the Finnish army for bolt action. It's been a while coming. You've noticed us do the unboxing videos of some of the Finnish troops, and now we've finally completed the army. One of the things that was holding me back was the additional Russian tanks and stuff used by the Finns, so it took me a while to put them together. But this is the army done. In bolt action you can get the army through the armies of France and the Allies. The Finnish army is in that book. I'll just see if I can find a page. It's taking time. This book's really useful because it's got quite a few different armies in it. So if you want to do one of the more out there armies, then that's quite cool for it.
You can't find it.
I can't find it. I'm just wasting my time. Ah, there we go. This is the Finnish army here. It's a cool army. I've always wanted to do Finns, so this is kind of a thing I've always wanted to do. We never quite got around to it, and then we moved house and everything, and now I finally got into doing it. Interesting. Finland started the Second World War officially before the Second World War actually started. Russia invaded Finland, and Finland found itself fighting for survival against the Russians. The Finns totally defeated the Russians. They kicked the Russians' backside. They destroyed 3 Russian army groups, and yeah, it was brilliant on the side of Finland. They did really well. Finland was not technically an ally of Germany, contrary to popular opinion. It was a nation with common aims. They were both at war with the same country, Russia.
Yeah.
So Finland never officially became an ally of Germany, so it was never an Axis power. Instead it was an ally of convenience. Finland was at war with Russia, and so it just kind of made sense for the Finns to accept aid from the Germans. During the Winter War, when the Russians first invaded Finland, Germany actually wouldn't send help to Finland.
Okay.
You may notice the markings, which are extremely racist, on the Finnish aeroplanes, and the markings on the tanks. They have the swastika. That is nothing to do with Germany.
Right. What's it to do with them?
It's a good look sign. It's a sign used by Finland in the First World War.
Okay.
On their aeroplanes. The markings of First World War Finnish aircraft had swastikas on them. It's nothing to do with Germany whatsoever. So, but when you see them, you say, "Oh, it's a Nazi aeroplane," but it's not. It's Finnish. And you find Spitfires with swastikas on them. That's because they're Finnish.
Right.
Has nothing to do with it. But no one's going to care about that. People don't seem to care about actual history. They just sort of care about their own views. Anyway, putting this army together, I currently have 2 platoons. I'm going to have a lot more than this, but at the moment I started off with 2 platoons. There's 12 men in a Finland platoon, so I had to get a couple of normal German soldiers and convert them. I've also added a few other units. I've got some some Finnish sniper team, a Finnish flamethrower, anti-tank rifle, and a 37mm anti-tank gun, which is either German or Russian anti-tank. The Russian 37mm look the same as the German 37mm. They're the same gun shield.
Yeah.
Because they're made in the same factory. So a lot of the Finnish anti-tank guns look German, but they're actually Russian.
Okay.
But that's just something. Finland started the war with like 8 tanks, and they were all British and rubbish. Little tankettes and things don't really count as tanks. They're sort of
No.
light armoured cars.
Yeah.
Tank-wise, they had some Vickers light tanks and some Vickers tanks armed with machine gun. Not combat worthy, and the Finns didn't use them in combat particularly.
Alright, yeah.
However, after the first Russian assault, the Finns found themselves the proud owners of a few dozen T26s.
They're tiny.
Yeah, little Russian tanks. The T26 was Russia's main battle tank
Yeah.
of 1938-39. It was the main battle tank of the Russian army, and they tended to break down a lot, and a lot were abandoned by their crews. Also, they didn't have armoured gun slits, so if you wanted to capture a Russian tank, all you did was climb on the side and machine gun or fire your pistol into the turret.
Yeah.
Anything under 6.5mm will go through a turret, so the slit in the tank that you look through is too small for a heavy machine gun bullet to go through, so like anything over 10mm won't go through it, but a pistol will, because they're like under.
Yeah, I get that.
So the Finns captured a lot of Russian tanks and used them themselves. They also captured the T-28 and the KV-1. There were a few KV-1s served in the Finnish army. I did this KV-1 up because I was doing a load of Russian KV-1s, and I thought, why not paint one up as Finnish?
Yeah.
And then we can use that in the game. It's because I wouldn't normally field a tank that was hardly used.
No.
But in this instance, I thought it'd be fun. They'd had quite a few T-28s. Finns formed 2 tank battalions, and normally when you form a tank battalion you say all these tanks are heavy tanks and they're all the same type.
Yeah.
It was actually the flip of a coin as to what captured tank went to which battalion. So they would just flip a coin when they captured a tank and it would go to that battalion or that battalion. So you had a mixture of KVs, T-34s and T-28s all in the same unit. Later on, as the war of continuation started, that's after Barbarossa, when Germany officially went to war with Russia, they did actually reorganise and put all the T-28s in one tank platoon, and all the KVs and T-34s and other tanks in a separate platoon. That's basically what they did. I haven't got any German stuff here because Germany did supply Finland with Stugs and a few Panzer IVs, quite a few Panzer IIIs, but we're not doing that period of the war. So there's no point doing those up to play. An interesting point about them is if you do later war Finnish, the machine guns should be, if you get the kit, if you buy a kit of a Stug or a Panzer III, whatever, to use as Finnish, you need to swap the guns for Russian guns.
Oh, okay.
Because the Finns didn't use German, the German MG34.
Right.
They took the MG34s out and they put PPSHs in, or DTs for anti-aircraft.
Right.
Because they could source the Russian ammunition better than they could source the German ammunition.
Oh, okay.
So they kept the German weapons for the infantry. So the tanks actually all used Russian equipment. So they just stripped the guns out and put new guns in.
Yeah.
But that's only if you're doing that for your own personal project, if you're doing that period. This is an early war period. So yeah, that's basically an overview of this particular army. This army is to be used for the very early war of continuation, so like 1941, as late as 42.
Yeah.
And as early as the actual Finnish war, the Winter War, the war between Russia and Finland.
Yeah.
It's not a late war army, but all of our armies that we do for Bolt Action are all early war.
Oh, okay.
Main reason for that is I find early war way more interesting than late war. Apart from anything else, when I was a kid, not so much a kid, going to gaming shows, everyone does 1944,
Yeah.
Western Front. Like everybody does it. And if they're doing Eastern Front, they're doing 1944 Eastern Front.
So
or
you thought, I'm
1945.
not doing any of that.
I know, it's just boring.
Do something different.
They're boring games. Because you've just got a handful of really good German tanks and then thousands and thousands and thousands of Allied things. Be it Russian or American. And so I just find that dull. I find the early war more interesting.
Yeah.
Because some of the tanks were more interesting. Germany had rubbish tanks. And Russia had brilliant tanks. And yet Germany is supposed to win. And they did win. And trying to game that on a table is because technically on paper you can't win with a bolt action early war army.
That's right.
Because the Germans are rubbish. 1941. Last point about the aeroplanes. I forgot about the aeroplanes. We have ourselves a Bristol Blenheim. This chap here, built by Britain, supplied to Finland. Quite a few were supplied to Finland. At the beginning of the war. Also a Gloucester Gladiator on the far side and 2 Brewster Buffaloes. That was the most common aircraft the Finns flew. They loved the Brewster.
Right.
It was very manoeuvrable and could outfight anything the Russians had, barring the introduction of the MiG.
Yeah.
When the MiG was introduced, the Brewsters were stuffed. So after Barbarossa, the Finns were in trouble against the Russian pilots. But early war, different matter. What else should I mention? Have I missed anything?
No, I think you've done the troops, haven't you? The tanks and the planes.
Yeah. Infantry-wise, you can use Swedish troops as well, if you wish to. So if you want to paint up a German infantry unit in Swedish colours, then in Swedish uniform you can. They look very much like the Norwegians. The Norwegians are in the book. Just use the same army for the Swedes. Quite a few Swedes volunteered to fight the Russians. They weren't pro-Nazi, they were just anti-communist. Finland, I'll just add this bit. Finland had benefits from not being communist, not supporting communism. A lot on the run-up to the Winter War, the Russian invasion of Finland. Russia was annexing countries on a monthly basis. They were attacking country after country, and they would drive into the first of all, they would get the local Communist Party to revolt, to start campaigning equal rights for communists, sort of thing. And the anti-fascists would be there, I don't know, setting fire to bins or whatever they did back in the 1930s. And they would cause trouble in the country, and then Russia would say, oh, we've got to protect the Russian citizens in this country, and then they would drive into the country and occupy it, and then have all the government shot, and then take it over. And they did it to numerous, I can't list the number of countries that Russia attacked, including Mongolia, funnily enough, because Russia found itself at war with Japan over Mongolia. They also invaded China, once in 1938 and again in 1939. Neither really worked out for them. The terrain was too bad to use tanks, and the infantry were rubbish. They had rubbish infantry. We've already mentioned in our Russian videos about the Russian army how Stalin had most of the officers shot. So the Russians were attacking with no officers with any initiative. So the Russian army wasn't much good. It was a massive army, millions of men, thousands of tanks, tens of thousands of tanks. But the command and control was non-existent. As soon as an attack would start, the Russian army would just fall apart, and there'd just be random dudes just running around shooting. There wouldn't be any control. So that benefited the Finns a lot. But what the Russians used to do is they would, as they attacked a country, they would get the local communist militia to rise up and take over post offices, which are the communication hubs, town halls, which are the government control areas, train stations, all the important stuff, and the communists would rise up and start attacking people, and that would enable the Russian army, even though it had had most of its officers shot, would be able to occupy that country quite easily. In Finland, it didn't really work out because there were no communist agitators, because the Finns had dealt with them already. They didn't allow them to grow. And a bad thing for Poland was Poland on paper should have beaten the Germans. One problem the Germans had, the Polish had, was you had a lot of communist forces attacking Polish soldiers because the communist troops were fighting on the side of the Germans because Russia and Germany had allied, and so the communists told the communist resistance fighters to support the German invasion, and of course the Nazis also had agitators as well, doing exactly the same. Of
course,
So Finland didn't have that problem, so they were able to maintain an army in the field without having to guard areas in the rear. They didn't have pro-communist forces blowing up train lines, shooting officers as they drove to work, trying to seize power. So Finland was able to fight Russia at arm's length without the Russians getting in.
Yeah, makes sense.
That helped Finland a lot. It's very hard explaining why Finland was able to beat Russia in the Winter War and why Finland was the only Axis country to survive the war. Finland didn't lose the war. They signed a treaty with Russia. And one of the things they signed the treaty over was the Finns pointed out to the Russians that at any point Finland could have taken Leningrad. Finland didn't take Leningrad. They didn't take Murmansk either. They would attack the train line, but they wouldn't attack Murmansk. They could have done. But that wasn't Finland's war aim. Finland didn't want to take Russian territory. That was the Germans doing that. Finland was fighting alongside the Germans, but they had no interest in wasting Finnish lives taking the city of Leningrad because it's got nothing to do with them. So when it came to the 1945, when Germany was being overrun, the Finns went to the Russians and said, "Look, we've fought a fair battle. Let's just throw the towel in." And so Stalin signed a peace treaty with Finland saying, "Okay, we'll just stop fighting," and that's what happened. Although they did theoretically have to hand over all the Germans in Finland, which didn't work out because the Finns allowed the Germans to leave quietly before they got round to passing the order out. Which is a bit underhanded, but Germany was an ally. You had common aims, and Germany had helped them. So, also during the Winter War, Britain very nearly ended up at war with Russia.
Oh dear.
Because Britain sent troop ships to take troops to Finland, but the troop ships got slowed down by red tape trying to get into the Baltic, and so they didn't arrive in time before Germany declared war on Poland. So it could have been that the Second World War would have begun with Russia and Germany as allies, and Britain, Finland, France on the other side. So Germany and Russia. The Second World War did begin with Germany and Russia as allies, but Britain would have been fighting Russia and Germany at the same time.
I get that.
So you would have had a three-way war. Although quite likely the Germans would probably have, had that been a serious war, it's quite possible the Germans could have spun it to get the British on side. The politics of the time, Churchill was more anti-communist than he was anti-fascist. So. But I think it's a really interesting bit of the war that people just overlook. And it's really fascinating, all the stuff that went into it. When Ribbentrop was sent to Moscow to talk to... Molotov went to Berlin to talk to Ribbentrop about what they would do, what was going on. They had just made this alliance, the secret alliance they hadn't officially announced yet. The communist, the Russian-German alliance. But they hadn't announced it yet, and they were talking about what to do, and they brought up the position of Finland. Ribbentrop said basically, well, why are you attacking Finland right now? Wouldn't it make more sense to stop wasting all your time attacking Finland, give the Finns what they want, and and help us invade Poland.
Yeah, I get that, yeah.
And Ribbentrop said, don't trust the Finns. Never trust the Finns.
trust
The
them."
Finns are untrustworthy. Because he despised the Finns. So, just an interesting side
Yeah.
point. So, yeah, that's really it.
Yeah.
We'll go into more details on the actual units and what they do in later videos, as we usually do. So, that's it. Any
Yeah.
questions? Last?
No, I think that's everything.
No. So, thank you very much for watching. This has been Imperator Vespasian and the trusty sidekick.
Yep. Me.
You, yeah. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Goodbye.